Hello everybody, today we'll be talking about the top 5 aggressive supports in Smite, but before we do that, let's talk about the #1 way to aggressively get hair off your body with our sponsor today, Harry's. Harry's is a high quality, low cost razor that you guys can order today. For just $8, guys, you can get the handle, the razor blade, the shaving gel, and the travel blade cover, guys. And with our special partnership with them, if you use the code Incon at checkout, you won't just get it for $8, guys. You'll get another $5 off your order. You can get the whole dang thing for $3. So what are we looking for in our top 5 aggressive supports, guys? We're going to be looking for a couple of things. Those most important things are going to be, 1, you're going to need a very strong level 1/level 2 presence for fighting. So that means we typically like CC abilities or some sort of movement ability that does damage, something that closes gaps, something that, like we said, crowd controls in some way or another. That's very important for that level 1, level 2 on our aggressive supports. And the second thing we're looking for is also lane clear. Very strong lane clear at level 1, level 2. That way we can be clearing the waves looking for fight. Or even if you think you're going to lose the lane clear, you can be immediately going for the fight and just having the minions hitting you guys and them at the same time. Those are what you're really looking for on those aggressive supports. You got to be able to fight and you got to be able to clear. And typically you're going to see they'll do one or the other better, but that's okay. Also, bonus points if you scale pretty well into the late game, whether your CC remains viable or you have some sort of effect in your kit that remains very viable going into the late game. These are not going to be your standard support gods, guys. These are going to be your aggressive supports, and these are also my favorite supports right now in casuals and ranked, and I think they're way better than your typical Sylvanas Geb supports. First up, guys, on our top 5 aggressive support list is going to be a bit of a wild card, guys. It's going to be Thanatos support. Thanatos support is very, very underrated right now. And I also want to say he's also not necessarily the easiest support to play. So why does he work as an aggressive support right now in Smite? Step 1, he's got an amazing level 1 fight, guys, because of his Scythe. Scythe is such a strong ability. It does a ton of damage. It chunks, but it's also a slow. Secondarily, he has a very good level 1 clear because your third attack in your auto chain is AoE, guys. That helps you clear over a lot of other supports. Also past that, you've got your silence ability, your third ability, which 1 is AoE, which is good for wave clear. 2, it's obviously another form of CC. A silence is a form of CC. So you get to play very aggressive, very early on in the lane, guys. It's very good for pushing, for taking buffs, for getting kills, for snowballing your ADC out of control. Not to mention, if you want to, you could also go Chalice of Healing and 5 health potions. Thana obviously doesn't need mana. So when you stack the Chalice of Healing, you stack those health potions together and you get yourself the Guardian's Blessing passive proccing. You're regenning so much health, not to mention that your 1 will heal you when you hit it. So don't miss your Scythe, guys. And your ulti also scales very, very strongly into the late game, guys. Thanatos historically drops off going into the late game. But as a support player not building damage, it actually means that your ultimate is super, super strong going into the late game because that's all you're utilizing really for damage. The rest is kind of peeling. You're slowing people, you're silencing their mages, you're diving their backline. You want to think of it more of you're more of like a Odin support. You know, you're in that aggressive nature. You're not typically peeling. You're initiating and kiting and looking for a little bit of damage and a little bit of peel once you've done your initial initiation. Fourth up, guys, on our list of aggressive supports, we have Artio. One of our more typical gods, I believe, on this list that everybody kind of knew was going to be on here. Ever since her release, she's basically been one of the stronger aggressive support gods in the game. But why is that? A large part of that is because of her 3. Her 3 is such an incredibly strong ability because it's a ranged CC. It's very safe to use. It actually gives you lifesteal. People kind of forget that it is a little bit of a heal. It does a decent bit of damage. And of course, it is a root. That root is very effective against gods like Freya, Artemis, AMC, those that don't have a getaway skill. And it's very effective against all ADCs that don't have their getaway skill at level 1, which is basically everybody. Nobody's getting their getaway skill level 1. So that typically allows you to put a bunch of poke, at least, onto the ADC to get pressure on them to maybe go take their buffs. Then, of course, you got to factor in that she also has her getaway skill at level 1, because not only do you have the root, you've got the bear form, so you've got the dash, which 1 is a great body block skill for getting in front of people. If your enemies don't have a sprint to level 1, it actually can get them killed quite often by being able to bear form in front of them and then body block them, and you're just like walking around like an idiot being like, nope, not this way, while your ADC is pounding on their head. So that's very strong. Then, of course, when you get level 2, you immediately have 2 more abilities. You've got the Bear Claws of Time, which do actually a lot of damage at level 1. And then, of course, you have your Mage Form 1, which is like an okay amount of damage, but once again is a heal, which is very good for those early game fights, because it's a heal for you and your ADC, so you got to factor that in. So she's got such a strong... one of the better, actually, level 1 fights in the game, because she has 2 abilities. She arguably has the best level 1 fight. But Artio doesn't quite transition into the late game as well. The reason why she doesn't is because she doesn't have an ultimate ability. Part of the reason why she's so strong early is because of those multiple abilities, because of the stance switch, but it also causes her to drop off a little bit at the late game. If you want to initiate with Artio in the late game, you're basically forced into getting Blink, which is not the strongest support active. That's like what more typical team fight supports are forced into. Think of your Gebs and Sylvanas of the world. They're kind of forced into Blink. Artio's kind of put into that same situation where you need the Blink if you want to initiate, but she is a very good peeler in the late game, and I recommend her as such. Preferably have somebody else on your team that can initiate. A Bull and a solo that can ulti in, a Thor jungle that can ulti in. Get those initiations off. That way you don't have to get the blink. You can get the sprint and the shell, and you can just focus on keeping your ADC and your mage alive as you transition to the late game. That's the best case scenario for you. But regardless, so aggressive in the early game. And in one of the easier gods to play, it's not particularly hard to hit Artio abilities. Most of them are cones and circles and stuff. So also very good for beginners that want to start playing more aggressive, but maybe aren't quite ready yet to be putting it all on the line with a Thanatos scythe. Entering into our top 3, guys, we have Cerberus as our 3rd best aggressive support right now. So what makes Cerberus good enough to be in our top 3 supports, even though he's a guardian? Well, first of all, he has got his 2nd ability, Ghastly Breath. Ghastly Breath is, of course, an AoE cone that you just saw being used. It is a very strong clear ability. It also is a slow. It also is a armor shred. All 3 great things, which makes him a very strong level 1 fight. Also makes his push at level 1 very strong. After that, of course, his first ability is a giant stun if you can hit it. And it also does a stupid, and I mean a stupid amount of damage, which allows you to once again set up your ADC. You stun them, it either forces their beads, you can cancel getaway skills with it. It can be a fairly hard ability to hit, but once you get used to it, it's not quite as bad. At the end of the day, everybody's gonna miss it sometimes, but it really just plows people with damage. Now, you got strong level 1 clear, you've got a great fight, you go into the jungle, you get to take their buffs, that's all fine and dandy. But Cerberus also has a brilliant transition into the middle game in the late game. He has a leap ability, which is pretty strong for a support. Not all supports get a jump ability. Sometimes you're lucky to get any movement ability at all. Sometimes you get like a dash or something like Athena. But jumps are good, helps you get over walls sometimes, helps you get away, helps you live. Also good for initiating as well, means you don't have to necessarily get blink as an active, which is good transitioning into the late game. But Cerberus is just so good at burning actives with his ultimate in the late game. His passive is very good into healing comps. He's a very good character into healing comps. If you see heavy healing, if you see the Hells, if you see the Aphrodites, if you see, heck, Guan Yu, now that we know that Guan Yu has that buff coming his way. If you see any of those characters, because of his passive, he's also a very good pick into those. Should allow you to snowball throughout the early game. You transition as a giant CC doggo into the mid game and late game, and of course you get that nice healing steal / reduction as well. Overall, very strong character. So many things that he is good at, and you should definitely have him in your repertoire of supports right now. Starting off our top 2, guys, we have got Erlang Shen as our number 2 aggressive support god right now. Even with the nerfs to Erlang, guys, there's absolutely no reason why you wouldn't play him right now in the support role. His kit is so crazy strong, so let's start with his level 1 and why it's so good. You start with your third ability on Erlang always. It gives you so many options over in the duo lane, guys. You can either use that turtle form for CC for the knockup, knockups being the best form of CC in the game, or what you really should be using it for if you have the opportunity to, is use that mink form, which is going to give you that Fatalis effect for quite a few seconds. And that Fatalis effect is going to let you just beat, and I mean beat on the ADC. And at this point, there's really no peel typically that supports can do outside of popping actives. So like, yeah, you can pop their sprint to get away. They can pop shell or something, but like then you just popped their actives there at level 1. So incredibly strong. I love Erlang paired with aggressive ADCs because he is he's number 2. He is one of the most aggressive supports in the entire game. He does so much damage at level 1 and 2 just with his auto attacks. Not even proccing your 1. Literally just his base audios are so strong. And when you get level 3 and you have all 3 abilities, you're minking out somebody, you're smacking them. With your 1 proc, they try to jump away. You're throwing your 2, they're pinned, they're rooted down again. So you've got a ton of CC. You've got a ton of damage, and Erlang actually has the most supporty transition into the late game. Not seen in this current gameplay, but don't worry about it. But Erlang can be super, super support-oriented in the late game. He actually transitions way better than actually anybody else in this list, basically. Because you have that knock-up on your 3, you have the root on your 2, and you have the taunt on your ulti. You can let somebody else on your team initiate. You can let the jungler initiate or the solo laner, and you can become more of that typical peeling role. Or you can choose to keep initiating as you go into the late game, have somebody else be more focused on peeling, and you can focus on initiating. Erlang is just so versatile that he can do both. So it gives you so many options going into the late game, which is why he's so powerful. Because you have the choice to be like, okay, do I want to build a little bit more damagey and kind of go hybrid solo laney build? Do I want to go straight support build and focus strictly on peeling and initiating? Do I want to play forward late game? Do I want to play it back late game? He can do all of them, and at the end of the day, you're still going to do like fairly respectable damage because of your passive. So just by proccing your 1 and not having any damage items, you're still going to do more damage than a typical support does, even if you build those full defense items, which makes them incredibly, incredibly valuable for a team. The only problem with getting him into the support role is your jungler is going to yell at you that he didn't get to play him in the jungle. So it's like, positives and cons, positives and cons. Now, guys, for the number 1 aggressive support in the game, you've seen him at Worlds, you've seen him get banned, you've seen him in a whole lot of roles recently, guys. It's Fenrir. Fenrir is an absolute monster right now, and not only is he the number 1 aggressive support, he's also one of the most annoying characters in the game right now. For any ADCs out there, they knew this was coming. For maybe my support players, maybe you don't pay attention so much to the competitive scene, you might be a little bit confused. You're like, what the Fenrir? But the ADC boys out there all know about this god being the number 1 aggressive support. If you played against him, this was not a surprise at all. But let's talk about why he's so good. And a lot of it actually has to do with the passive and the effect on his 1. So let's talk about it a little bit. Fenrir's 1 does very good base damage. It's like 95 base damage, give or take, which is very strong. And it's not that hard to hit. If you struggle with Fenrir 1, just get a little bit more practice with the character. If you have the chibi skin, I find that the chibi skin's 1 is actually harder for enemies to see how you're jumping. A little bit of pay to win on the skin. But regardless, the 1 does good damage, and the 1 stuns if you have 5 runes built up on your passive. Now, that's not why it's super strong. It is super strong because it's a stun that you can get at level 1, which is strong. But the real reason why it's so strong is the cooldown. Fenrir 1 has a base cooldown of 15 seconds, but that's actually not the case all the time. The cooldown actually gets down 50% if you hit the 1 on a god, and people tend to forget that until you're playing against Fenrir. But when Fenrir hits you, the cooldown on his jump is actually 7 seconds instead of the baseline 15, which means you can jump all the time. It also means that if you're using it correctly and you're jumping on them, you can hit the archers and the enemy gods at the same time. So you're getting your wave clear off, your stun effect off, and you're getting the cooldown effect all at the same time, which is super crazy strong. At level 2, of course, you get Brutalize. Brutalize, while isn't maybe the easiest ability to get the entire thing off, not that it's hard to hit, it's just that maybe it's a little bit harder to have the entire thing go off because you get CC'd out of it or people jump away. It also doesn't break on dashes. People forget this a lot of the time, which means that characters like Cupid, characters like Hachi, etc. Anybody with a dash, and of course people that don't have any movement skills at all, they can't get away from Brutalize, which makes it super effective against ADCs, because a lot of ADCs don't actually have jumps. So like people like Anher can jump away from you, which stops your Brutalize, stuff like that. But anybody else, your AMCs of the world are just stuck in it. Your Hachis of the world are just stuck. Even if Hachi horses, you just follow his horse, man. And you're just smashing him the entire time. As you transition into level 5, you're going to get your ulti, of course. So you're going to stun the enemy support, right? They don't have beads because they're support. You're going to put them in your mouth. You're going to drag them to your ADC. The support is dead 100% of the time. Always, always, always just go grab the support. Go kill him. Call it a day. You don't got to do anything crazy. If the ADC's beads are down and you know it, sure, go grab them. But when you hit level 5, your first instinct should be, I'm going to go grab that support player. I'm going to go get him killed immediately because he doesn't have beads. And I know he doesn't have beads and he's going to die. It doesn't matter if you're under tower because you jump on him, you stun him, then you go and you ulti for him so you're CC immune, and then you grab him and then you bring him to ADC and your ADC goes, oh, look at me. I can't miss my autos because he's in Fenrir's mouth. And it's the easiest thing, the easiest kill your ADC is ever going to get. And if you hadn't got any kills in the early game, that's going to start your kills. That's going to start a little bit of snowball over in the duo lane because the duo lane is so snowballed this season, which is why aggressive supports are better than typical like teamfight supports right now. Just because the duo lane is so aggressive. Other lanes not so much, but the duo lane just super aggressive, guys. But that's why Fenrir is your #1 support. That's why you should be looking to play aggressive supports, guys. I hope this video was helpful. Hope this gave you some gods to check out. My only thing to be careful for, guys, in this video, I think most of these gods you're going to be fine playing. You won't get yelled at. I would be careful with the Thanatos, not because I don't think he really is a top 5 aggressive support, because I really do think he is, but just because if you're playing him in like casuals or ranked or something, and your name isn't Incon, you're liable to get yelled at, and I apologize. And then if you feed your brains out trying it, you're definitely going to get yelled at, so just keep that in mind. You know, MOBA players, what are you gonna do? Thank you for watching the video. If you liked the video, please go ahead and hit the like button. And if you like the channel, go ahead and subscribe and ring that bell, guys, in order to get notifications for our uploads. If you want to go the extra mile to help support the Twitchiest community, you can always go to our Twitch channel at twitch.tv/Incon and use your Twitch Prime sub there. It's a great way to help support the community. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a twitchin' day, y'all.